questioning people about miscarriages. I mean, that is a police state. Michael, is that small government? Is that limited government? Because to me, it looks like
that is limited. Yeah.
In this video, Michael Knowles and Brian Tyler Cohen have a heated debate. Michael Knowles and Brian Tyler Cohen argue the subject of abortion and whether or not a baby in a woman's womb is in fact a baby. And fireworks ensue. With that, let's watch Michael Knowles obliterate soy boy Brian Tyler Cohen.
You know, it is always funny how the same people who warned that Roe was not in danger are now warning that same-sex marriage is not in danger, contraception is not in danger, interstate travel are not in danger. If we listen to these people, when they had promised us that Roe wasn't in danger, we wouldn't be in a country right now that's just had 50 years of precedent and a woman's right to her own bodily autonomy stripped away.
Well, I'll say just for my own part, I have never suggested Roe is not in danger. I have always been very hopeful that Roe would be overruled because you're discussing bodily autonomy. I'm all for the bodily rights of babies in the womb. And after the Dobbs decision, of course, that didn't even protect the rights of babies in the womb. It simply returned the issue to the states where it had always been until this ridiculous decision in 1973, which is no more.
All right. I mean, we're looking at more than 50 years of precedent. And you mentioned some of these cases, Griswold in 65, Eisenstadt in 72, Roe in 73, and Casey in 1992. All of that is precedent upon precedent. And, claiming that the court is only correct now that it's following your specific political and or religious views shows that you're just interested in cherry picking decisions that comport with those views.
Brian, are you familiar with the Dred Scott decision?
Yes.
The Dred Scott decision, which said that black people can never be American citizens. That was also Supreme Court precedent, right? Would you say that the court was right to overturn the Dred Scott decision?
This is the first time that the court has reversed a decision to take away rights, and it has stripped that right from half of the population. And the practical impact of that is that, in real life now, we're looking at a 10-year-old in Ohio who would have been forced to give birth to her rapist baby. We're looking at incest victims potentially giving birth to their own brothers or sisters. We're looking at doctors being jailed. We're looking at police.
I don't think any of us even needed to watch this to know exactly what Brian Tyler Cohen's strategy was going to be. When abortion is discussed, inevitably and as quickly as they can, Democrats will always go to I think it's less than 1%, maybe 2% of abortions in the United States that are as a result of rape or incest. I shouldn't need to say this, but obviously those are just vile situations, and I can't fathom any human having to go through that, and my heart goes out to anyone that's had something like that happen, and I hope justice is brought upon those predators. What the Democrats want to avoid in this conversation is talking about the vast majority of abortions that are used like birth control, or just because someone decided to have sex and now the consequences aren't convenient for them. Because they know if they argue on those grounds, there's zero moral justification for that kind of behavior. Personally, I think, like I believe most things should be, that abortion laws should be left up to the states. That's the country that we created. So I was glad to see it overturned, and I believe it should be in the hands of the states. Let's get back to the video.
Questioning people about miscarriages. I mean, that is a police state. Michael, is that small government? Is that limited government? Because to me, it looks like
that is limited. Yeah,
it looks like Christo-fascist religious extremism. Christo-fascist religious extremism.
The case you're referring to in Ohio, Brian, by the way, the 10-year-old who was reportedly raped, she actually, by the Ohio law, would not have been prevented from getting an abortion in Ohio, regardless of what you think about pro-life or pro-abortion. That she may have gone to Indiana, but she wouldn't have needed to. But furthermore, when you talk about rape and incest and all of that, that accounts for far less than 1% of all abortions. Statistically, 100% of abortions are elective abortions. I think those should be gotten rid of. And I think the Dred Scott analogy is important here, because the Dred Scott decision from the court said that black people are not really people and they can't be American citizens. And the Roe v. Wade decision from the court said that babies are not really people and their existence and their value depends simply on whether they're desired or not by their parents. And both of them are horrific, and it's very good that both were overturned.
So if it's only just a small percentage rape and incest, that 1%, do you agree with an exemption for rape and incest then?
Well, it's also kind of curious that people make these two distinctions between rape and incest. I don't know of a whole lot of consensual incest, so we're really just...
If you like videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
Just talking about exceptions for the case of rape, and the liberals always try to argue from the absolute most hard cases. But the argument for pro-life is that a person is a person, no matter how small, and also an abortion does not fix anything. Abortion will not get rid of a rape. Abortion will not undo any sort of crime. Abortion does not even make any take away any lifelong responsibilities or anything like that. There is such a thing as adoption. You can deal with very difficult, horrible circumstances in a way that will not increase trauma to people, as abortion does, and will not lead them to commit horrific actions and to end a human life.
We're running out of time. Brian, last word to you.
I would just say to that, I have two things to say to that. One, it doesn't matter what your opinion on this is, because this is not your body. It's not your choice. You're not the one who is able to make this decision for anybody else, regardless of how easy you, Michael Knowles, thinks it is for somebody to put their child up for adoption. The second thing I would say is
it's very easy. There are 36 couples for every one newborn who's put up for adoption. 36 couples who want to adopt in America.
Here's the thing. Whether we're talking about abortion or gay marriage, these are people's lives that you're messing with right now, all because you think that your religious beliefs are licensed to dictate how other people live. And what's craziest for me is how you guys shove this idea of limited government down everybody's throats, and yet the people constantly stripping others of their rights are Republicans. If you don't want an abortion, don't get an abortion. If you don't want a gay marriage, don't get gay married. If you don't want to read certain books from libraries, don't read those books from libraries. If you don't want to identify differently, then don't. But why should nobody get these things? With all of these things,
if you don't want to commit a murder, don't commit a murder.
Hold on, Michael. Let me just finish my point. With all of these things, you lose nothing. All that happens is that other people enjoy equal rights, and yet conservatives' beliefs are apparently so goddamn fragile that the mere existence of people who are different from them is somehow a threat to you.
I don't think any of those platitudes mean much of anything. We just don't want babies to be killed in the womb. You brought up this
But these
point,
aren't,
Brian.
Michael, these aren't babies. And if you wanted to use the 1% example,
They are
if you wanted to use the
babies.
99% and 1% example, 99% of these abortions happen in the first trimester, and also they're
Still
not
babies.
babies. They are embryos. They are non-viable embryos.
There's a
And
fetus.
beyond
Do you
all
know-
of that,
Brian, do you know
it's
what the
not
word
your
fetus
choice what
means?
a woman does with her own body.
Of course,
Brian, do you know
of
what
course. I don't know if we're going to.
There's one very important point to make. Even
It's funny watching like a beta male like Brian Tyler Cohen try to pretend to get angry because he stands up for people so much. But once again, he goes back to the same old lame arguments. They're not babies. Okay. First of all, they are babies. You don't want to call them babies because the idea of that image of a baby being ripped out of a mother's womb is much more difficult to advocate for. And don't forget, everybody, Republicans, according to Brian Tyler Cohen, are the ones that want to strip everyone of their rights because we don't want babies being murdered. Republicans really are monsters, with examples like that. And how about the one example he's given in this argument about the 10-year-old in Ohio? Michael had to check him on that and say, no, you're incorrect, that they could have had that pregnancy terminated in Ohio. So his argument stinks, and he's not even making solid factual points. But I thought Michael made a really good point that I don't know if I've heard articulated that way before, to say that even when a baby is conceived under horrific circumstances, abortion doesn't solve any of the bad things that happened. However, there's an enormous bad outcome when you do give someone an abortion, which is a life is lost. So, and I hear people a lot of times say, but what if the woman is struggling and she can't afford it? And what kind of life is that baby going to have if they're raised with a single mom and the father's not around and she doesn't have a lot of money and no support? Again, Democrats love to virtue signal about these extreme cases, like, again, the rape and incest, and then one like I just described. But even to the one I just described, Michael Knowles made a great point. I didn't know this number. I guess I'll take him at his word. 36 couples for every one baby to be adopted. I mean, I definitely have always known it's a long, arduous process to adopt in the U.S., so that doesn't surprise me at all. So by not aborting a baby, you save a life, and you help a loving couple that was otherwise unable to have children now able to have a family. That's a pretty beautiful thing. Oh, and I wanted to make one more point. When you call a baby a fetus, I mentioned earlier it's because calling it a baby humanizes it, and it's much more harder for the left to argue their point about abortion. I think they do the same thing with women's reproductive rights. They don't call it abortion because women's reproductive rights is much easier on the ears than abortion, because when you hear abortion, you picture what's actually happening. When you hear women's reproductive rights, it sounds like a routine medical procedure that women need all the time, and they're being stripped of access to that. The Democrats aren't very clever, but they think they're very clever with their wordplay. But I just have never found any of their arguments to be all that credible. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
Even beyond pointing out that the word fetus is just Latin for offspring, the important point to make in responding to what Brian said,
Michael, depending on the gestational stage, these are not all fetuses. They are
all
zygotes, then embryos, then fetuses.
All right,
embryos.
We're not all going to talk over each other.
And they become babies.
All right,
there's one important point that Brian made that I have to respond to. Which is, Brian, you said that because I'm a man, I do not have any right to have an opinion on abortion.
It's because it's not your body. That's the point I was making.
I would notice, Brian, and I hate to assume your gender, that you are also a man and you are opining on abortion. And more importantly, the Supreme Court that decided Roe v. Wade, how many women were on that court that decided that issue?
Of course,
it's not a matter of your gender. It's a matter of it not being my body. It's a matter of it not being your body. That's the point.
Okay, we're going to end it.
Yeah, even if Brian Tyler Cohen wasn't trying to specifically say men couldn't have an opinion, just said it's not your body, so you can't have an opinion. Either way, for rational thinkers that view it as ending a life, yeah, we can have an opinion on what's good and evil. And if I see something evil out there, I'm going to have an opinion about it, and I'm going to speak against it. So, again, such a dumb argument for this pro-choice thing. Anyway, we want to hear from you. What do you guys think? Am I nuts? Did Brian Tyler Cohen make some good points that I'm just maybe too biased to see? Or do you think Michael Knowles made the better case for pro-life? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, that's it for this video. As always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one.